Ever since their NBA title in 2020, things have not looked good for the Los Angeles Lakers, who have not only struggled to capitalize on their early success in the LeBron James and Anthony Davis era, but also blatantly regressed, wasting away the last few years of the Kings' illustrious career. But the truth is, LeBron might only have himself to blame for the situation the Lakers got themselves into post-championship. With the recent hiring of a totally inexperienced NBA coach in JJ Redick and the highly contested draft of his son Bronny at 55, which made headlines as a blatant case of NBA nepotism, one can wonder if LeBron James has simply not become too powerful within the franchise. Let's dive into this situation and see if the King is really ruining the Lakers. This all started back in 2018, right when the King joined the Lakers. This was heavily criticized because it was seen as a non-basketball move from LeBron James. He was going there because of Hollywood. He only wanted to shoot his Space Jam movie. He was in pre-retirement. Yep, you heard it all at the time. He was going to ruin the Lakers. Except, it actually started out very well. LeBron joined a Lakers team full of promising young talent that had not made the postseason in a few years. He led them to a great start until an unfortunate injury around Christmas, which completely broke their season. The season after that, LeBron was obviously involved in the Lakers' decision to trade most of their assets to get Anthony Davis, with whom they immediately won a championship in 2020 with a very well-constructed roster. At this point, there was absolutely no blame whatsoever towards LeBron. He was the Lakers' savior. After years of being the laughingstock of the NBA, they were back on top, thanks to LeBron's production on the court, but his decisions off the court, such as trading for Anthony Davis. But everything went downhill after that. There was no sign of the Lakers not being able to repeat in 2021, or at least be serious contenders for the next few years. Their team was good and not even that old. However, they have never been a true contender ever since. Now, let us make something clear before we dive into the subject. It is okay and completely normal for the Lakers front office to give some sort of power to LeBron when it comes to decision-making. Because he is LeBron James, because he led your franchise to a championship, and because every single NBA organization gives this kind of power to its franchise player, especially if he has had any success with the team. And yes, it is definitely amplified if he is LeBron James. You would not want your best player to be unhappy. At the end of the day, a player's input is not any less valuable than a front office guy's input. And there is something else that needs to be addressed. LeBron James is not 100% responsible for every single move or decision from the Lakers in the past 6 years. That may sound obvious, but we don't want you to think that is what we are implying. And some people, who probably don't like him very much, believe he controls the organization and dictates everything to the general manager. That is just not how it works. David Griffin, who was LeBron's general manager for 4 years in Cleveland, also said that although LeBron was always involved in a way, he was not the one making the decisions all the time. But we also have to acknowledge that he has had more of a hand in these decisions than any player, ever, in the history of the NBA, sometimes acting as a GM of his team for certain decisions. It was quite blatant at times when he was on the Cavs, notably during the 2018 season where the team pretty much traded away their entire roster to build a new one mid-season. Sometimes it leads to great moves, and sometimes it reminds us why there are still people whose job it is to do these kinds of moves. We have to start with one of the worst decisions in Lakers history, the Russell Westbrook trade. Coming off their championship, the Lakers actually had a great start to the 2021 season. Sadly, they were plagued with unfortunate injuries to both their star players, meaning that they suffered an early first-round exit to the Suns, which did not really reflect the true level of that team. The right thing to do would have been to stay patient, get healthy, and compete again the following year. The Lakers decided to take the wrong path and overreact to their injury misfortune. Now, this is not Westbrook's fault, but his fit on the Lakers was always a weird one. Some people were hyped when the trade was announced, thinking the Lakers had a new big three and a new super team, but most fans immediately questioned Russell's fit alongside LeBron and Anthony Davis. It is no secret that Westbrook is not a good shooter. He also needs the ball in his hands. When he doesn't have it, he is not nearly as good. Except when you are a point guard on LeBron's team, you need two things: be a good shooter and a good off-the-ball player. So yes, this was weird and unexpected. However, this was James's idea. He did not just approve the front office's idea and give them the green light. No, he was the one who suggested it and pushed for it to happen. ESPN reporter Dave McMenamin reported that a few months later, and also revealed that by the half of Westbrook's first season as a Laker, LeBron's camp was already trying to push him out of the team. When he was eventually traded, we learned that LeBron himself admitted in private that this trade was a mistake. Trades that don't pan out the way you would have hoped are pretty normal though, except it is a little bit different when the trade is decided by a player. If you are making decisions you should not be making in the first place, you will rightfully get criticized even more than usual if it does not turn out good. And in that case, not turning out good is an euphemism. This trade completely completely ruined the Lakers for the next 2 seasons. As expected by many, Westbrook simply did not fit with the Lakers. He was used off the ball a lot where teams had no interest in guarding him because he is a poor three-point shooter. Westbrook was not happy with his role. The fans were not happy and abused him online, turning him into a scapegoat when the real issue here came from whoever greenlit that trade, and in that case, LeBron James. The 2022 season was abysmal. Not only did Westbrook not fit, the Lakers had lost all the role players that helped them win a championship 2 years ago. They eventually missed the playoffs entirely, not even making the play-in. A complete failure, especially when your franchise player LeBron James is entering the last years of his prime. You can't afford to waste them. The next season, the Lakers eventually traded Russ midway through the season and turned their season around, to the point where they had a great playoff run and made it to the Western Conference Finals, where they lost to the eventual NBA champions Denver Nuggets. The 2023 season was not too bad in the end, but everyone was kind of wondering, what could have been if Westbrook was not on the team to begin the year? What if they did not have to wait until February to play like a good playoff team? Could they perhaps have beaten the Nuggets? We will never know, but what we do know is that the Lakers would have been way better off not making that trade and keeping the likes of KCP, Caruso, or Kuzma. Now, all of a sudden, it is summer of 2023. It has been 3 years since your championship. LeBron James is 38 years old, and because of how bad the team has been, he was forced to have an insane offensive load at that age, scoring 30 points per game and playing over 35 minutes per game in the last 2 seasons. Last summer, there was legitimate concern as to whether or not LeBron would be able to sustain this level of play. It was this bad. And yet, that was his idea. In this specific case, there is really no argument to save him. But that's not the whole story. The Lakers front office deserves some blame too. There were other awful decisions that were made recently, which did not involve LeBron James. What about letting Alex Caruso walk in free agency, refusing to spend a little bit more money to keep him on the roster? To make matters worse, Caruso came out later and said he was even ready to take a pay cut to stay in Los Angeles. Not enough for the Lakers front office. The worst part is that he got even better after leaving, becoming one of the most sought-after players in the whole league. Exactly the kind of player that the Lakers would need right now. However, recent moves by the Lakers have been heavily criticized, especially for how obvious it is, even to us fans, that LeBron James was behind it all. The first one was the hiring of JJ Redick as head coach of the Lakers. Redick, who had a long career as a good role player in the NBA, then became one of the most popular podcasters and analysts on TV. His knowledge and understanding of the game is great. Most NBA fans appreciate him for his ability to break down games, unlike most big-time analysts on TV. However, he has had absolutely zero coaching experience in his entire life. Now, you gotta start somewhere, right? But most first-time head coaches in the NBA have already been assistants, G League coaches, college coaches, overseas coaches, anything. JJ Redick went from the ESPN studios to being the head coach of a playoff team that is constantly under immense pressure, something that is extremely rare in the NBA. This conveniently happens a few months after Redick started a new podcast called Mind the Game with LeBron himself. The dots are not hard to connect here. LeBron definitely pushed for JJ to be the head coach. Once again, there is nothing wrong with your franchise player having a say in the hiring of your new head coach. One could argue it is mandatory, because you need the two of them to work well together. But it is different when he is completely inexperienced and also happens to be a friend and colleague of your franchise player. Now you have everyone wondering, is LeBron just choosing his buddy over a better coach with whom he is not friends with? And that is a legitimate concern to have. However, there were also reports that the Lakers pursued Dan Hurley, the UConn head coach, and that he was even their first choice. So what does that mean? Well, LeBron is not actually pulling all the strings within the organization. He doesn't just come into Rob Pelinka's office and say, "I want JJ," and he is hired the next day. And on the other hand, were there even any really good NBA coaches available? It feels like maybe the media is slightly overreacting to this. That is not the only thing they are overreacting to. The draft of his son, Bronny James, has been one of the biggest talking points by NBA fans and media, mostly because of how Bronny ended up on the Lakers. It was reported that his agent, Rich Paul, who is also LeBron's agent, called every team that could have drafted Bronny and told them that if they did, he would go play in Australia next year, basically telling them, don't draft Bronny. Sadly, this has become a very common thing amongst NBA agents, pretty much choosing where their player will get drafted. That is not how the draft is supposed to work, and it even goes against the whole point of the draft. Bad teams are supposed to get help. If players can pick and choose where to start their career, what kind of power do the teams even have left? This particular case made the headlines because this stuff usually happens with top prospects going in the top 5 or something like that, not with a late second-round pick. But at the end of the day, can you really blame LeBron? He's been playing for over 20 years. He has accomplished everything he could have hoped for, and now has a chance to do something that no one has ever done in the history of the NBA, which also happens to be really cool as a father. Who wouldn't have done the same if we are being completely honest? This is just nepotism, something that is very common in sports and especially in front offices. So why is it a problem only now? Also, this is a late pick. You very, very rarely get someone that plays multiple seasons so late in the draft. For the last 10 years, only one guy drafted 55th actually became a real NBA player, Aaron Wiggins. The 9 other players never made it. Most of them did not even play more than one season in the NBA. You are not wasting a high-value pick on Bronny. Worst case scenario, he can't play at the NBA level, which is exactly what happens majority of the time with 55th picks. No harm, no foul. Best case scenario, he ends up being a decent role player, and everyone congratulates LeBron and the Lakers for their genius move. You also have to take into account that less than a year ago, Bronny was projected to go top 20 in the draft. Some people even had him in the lottery. His unfortunate cardiac arrest definitely slowed him down as he could not play the entire season for USC. But the point remains, he's not a real 55th pick. He is definitely better than what the pick suggests. However, there is another real issue coming from this Bronny draft: the influence of Rich Paul, CEO of Clutch Sports. Clutch Sports is probably the biggest sports agency in the NBA, and Rich Paul is definitely the most influential agent, the one with the most power. His client lists includes guys like Anthony Davis, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Darius Garland, De'Aaron Fox, and many other very good role players. The thing is, LeBron is always associated with Clutch because he was their first client, and Rich Paul is his childhood friend. But the way Clutch operates does not sit right with everyone in the NBA landscape, as we have seen with the way Bronny ended on the Lakers. And sometimes, it looks like Clutch Sports is pulling the strings behind the scenes for the Lakers, especially given that they have the team's 2 best players as their clients. What does that mean? Well, you can't really upset the Clutch agency now if you are the Lakers because they can just make sure LeBron and AD don't resign, or even ask for a trade. So if they want you to draft Bronny, who's a Clutch client, you kind of have to do what they ask you to. This also applies to other franchises. There are so many players signed to Clutch that you cannot afford to get in a bad relationship with them. Otherwise, you would pretty much say goodbye to a lot of very good NBA players as Clutch will simply refuse to deal with you. Sources have even come out to say that LeBron has been using his influence to make new players sign with Clutch. And it's not all pretty. An anonymous NBA agent even had this to say about Rich Paul and his ways. There are 4 or 5 of them that have suffered millions of dollars from mismanagement, but nobody has the courage to support it because all the media wants access to LeBron. They want access to AD. So yes, one can criticize Clutch Sports' heavy involvement in Lakers business. Players having this much power is one thing, but sports agencies? That's not a good thing. However, you can't really point out to moves or players that were brought to the Lakers, especially by Clutch, and for Clutch that really had a negative impact on the team. However, this goes back to the pre-retirement narrative that the media started back in 2018 when LeBron was about to join the Lakers. Sure, he is not ruining the team, but is he making the best moves possible, or is he trying to surround himself with family and friends? Even that argument does not make any sense. Not only has LeBron already won a championship in LA, he has been playing an insane amount of minutes for someone his age in the past few years, and has been giving his all to the organization. There were countless games and even entire parts of the season where LeBron was almost alone on the court and had to do everything on his own. Now, there are even talks in the 2024 offseason of LeBron James taking a pay cut, so the team can spend a little more money and bring in better players to surround him and AD. All of this boils down to an organization choosing to make their franchise player, who happens to be one of the greatest players of all time, happy, because that's how the NBA works these days. What can be scary, though, is the future of NBA looking more and more like this. LeBron James is an exception, an anomaly. He is given much more power than any other superstar because he's LeBron James. However, the next generation of superstars might be influenced by this and believe they should be involved in every decision, choose their head coach, their co-star, everything. Except that, this is not a good direction to go in at all for the league. Player empowerment is good, but most NBA players are not fit to make such decisions. But does that mean that LeBron James is ruining the Lakers with his extreme involvement in the franchise's big decisions? No, LeBron is not ruining the Lakers. No, LeBron is not hurting the Lakers. There is no denying that he is heavily involved. There is also no denying that it has been even more blatant lately. and there is no denying that it has not always been good, as it was shown by the Westbrook trade. But at the end of the day, even if LeBron left the Lakers tomorrow first thing in the morning, his stint in Los Angeles would still be a success. We have to understand how hard it is to win an NBA championship. Yes, the Lakers gave away a lot of their future picks, but that's what most NBA champions have to do in order to have the right squad. This does not mean that the Lakers will be horrible for 10 years straight after LeBron leaves. We also have to remember what the Lakers looked like the past few years before LeBron joined. He basically saved the franchise. Saying that he is actually hurting the franchise is nonsense, especially before we even got to see JJ Redick and Bronny in action. Ever since trading Westbrook away, the Lakers have made plenty of good moves. This goes to show that either LeBron is pushing for what's best for the franchise, or he is simply letting the front office do its job, and he is not actually pulling all the strings behind the scene like some of his haters suggest. At the end of the day, LeBron James has not ruined any franchise he has played for. Some people like to say that he has, because the teams end up in a bad state once he leaves. Well, yes, that's what happens when a player as good as LeBron James leaves your franchise. You obviously get worse. Some people say he likes to use all the draft picks his team has to win now and does not care about the future of the franchise. Spoiler alert, most franchises in the NBA would do the exact same thing if it led to a ring. It is incredibly difficult to win a championship in the NBA. You need an insane squad and insane luck. So yes, LeBron is always ready to go all in and risk it all to win one. The results? He has won Cleveland's first championship ever. He has won Miami 2 of their 3 championships. He has won the Lakers their first ring in 12 years. LeBron James does not ruin franchises, he elevates them.